do you consistently go to, are there one or two favorite, when I say favorite attributes, are there favorites that, like, man, that's really a core go-to? You give me those one or two things and we can build a lot from it.
Yeah, well, so again, I want to highlight the subjectivity of people's experiences, and the fact that, depending on what environment you're in life, certain attributes will gain or require predominance or prioritization. However, when put to the wall, I will say that the grit attributes, courage, perseverance, adaptability, resilience, I think those are likely the most important, just to have a meaningful human experience, right? And again, courage, the ability to step outside of our comfort zone, to do things that we may not want to do. This is what's caused our species to go from cave dweller to space explorer. Just this idea of courage itself. Same with perseverance, same with adaptability, and same with resilience. And so I think if I were to prioritize any, I'd probably prioritize those, the grit category, which is made up of those four attributes.
Can you see that in people without the stressed environment? Can you see those?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, again, well, I guess it depends on the attribute. Adaptability is simply the ability to easily flex and adapt to an environment that's changing outside your control, right? That doesn't necessarily need to require stress and fear. It often does, certainly, but it doesn't need to. Resilience, again, are we able to bounce back from not only failure but also success? Resilience goes both ways. How quickly and effectively you can get back to baseline. That doesn't necessarily require a lot of stress. It often does. Courage is going to require discomfort. Courage, by definition, is the ability to step into our discomfort, which means that autonomic arousal is getting raised. Our amygdala is getting tickled, and we are presented neurologically with the choices that we all know: fight or flight. If we choose fight, i.e., step into our fear, we have courage. That's the courage switch. That's known as the courage switch in the brain. It's a specific switch, and we get a dopamine reward for that, by the way. So courage requires, it's neurologically proven that what we know has been philosophically true, which is, courage cannot exist in the absence of fear. You have to have it. Fear has to be present. And then perseverance. Perseverance typically implies some level of struggle. It's perseverance is defined as the ability to get knocked down 7 times and get up 8. Right. Every time I get knocked down, I just keep coming. So I think perseverance does imply some level of struggle. Whether that struggle involves fear, that's one thing. It doesn't necessarily have to, but certainly challenge and stress is involved. So I think there's a sliding scale for all of them. But I want people to understand that anybody can get better at this if they can practice this stuff by doing little things. I mean, in other words, stepping into your fear doesn't mean you have to go skydiving tomorrow. It could mean I'm going to start the conversation with that stranger that I've been wanting to, and I've been hesitant to, right? It could mean I'm going to go take that improv class I've been hesitating to, or learn that new language. Whatever those little steps into our discomfort are, in fact, opportunities to practice this stuff and get better. Well, we have a part of our brain. It's been, I don't know how recently discovered, but it's called the anterior mid cingulate cortex. Okay, it's a small part of our brain, and this brain has been proven. Neuroscience have seen that this part of our brain fires off when people are in anticipation of challenge and struggle, and also in challenge and struggle. Okay, it fires off and it actually grows. The more we actually do hard stuff that we don't necessarily want to do, this part of our brain grows, and as it grows, it gets easier to do hard stuff. It gets more habitized or habitualized, which means those of us who've had the opportunity and the gift of doing hard things as we grew up, I believe there's an advantage there, because we've just gotten more comfortable. We've gotten better. We've aired ourselves towards more being masters of uncertainty than we thought, because we've just done those things. And so I think anytime, and then for all the parents out there, I do not encourage being Machiavellian with your kids. That's silly. But certainly don't discourage your kids from trying a bunch of stuff. I'm always like, hey, throw as many things in front of their windshield as possible, i.e., don't make them do one sport for their whole
Yeah. Yeah.
From age 5. Okay. But again, I don't want to judge, and I wouldn't judge, but the more diversified stuff you can throw in front of your kid's windshield, the more they're going to practice this thing called struggle. And then, are we rewarding the proper thing. We've never rewarded our kids for winning. Winning is just the result, right? We reward our kids for working hard and taking a risk and trying. And so even if they take a risk and fail or they lose, the reward is because they took the risk. That's where you start growing.
Goes back to the idea of what you said, the peak is so temporary, right?
Yeah, it really is. Really is.
It's like when you hear all these stories, you've done probably way more physical, difficult things in your life than I have. But when people climb Mount Everest, it's one of the most dangerous things I guess you can do for an adventure sport, maybe jumping out of planes and all that. But you hear people die every year. And all that preparation, all of the experience, all of the risk, all the danger to get to the peak and stay up there for what, 10 minutes?
10 minutes, yeah.
And come back down.
Right. Yeah. It's the journey, right? It's the journey. Yeah. And I think, I think so. I think our responsibility is to give our kids the ability to experience and to learn and to grow. We know, neuroscientifically, we learn more when we lose, when bad things happen, than when good things happen. This, by the way, is neuroscientifically proven. And the reason is because and so, by the way, so one of my good friends, and he wrote the foreword to my book, is Andrew Huberman, has a great podcast called the Huberman Lab. And so he and I talk about this and have talked about this at length. But one of the things we've talked about is this idea: when you learn anything, you got two neural networks that make a connection. And then once that connection is made, what happens is as you repeat that that connection myelinates. So there's a substance called myelin. It's kind of like the coaxial cable stuff, right? But as that connection myelinates, the effort becomes faster, the energy travels faster. So this is like when you first learn a skill, you have to really think about it, right? You first learn how to drive a stick shift car, you have to really think about it. And as you do it more and more, that connection is myelinating, okay? Which means you end up not having to think about it at all. All this to say that process is accelerated and can be accelerated 10, sometimes 100 times when three things are present in the environment. Those three things are intensity, novelty, and focus, okay? Which is why being told a stove is hot is different than touching a hot stove, because when you touch a hot stove, all three of those things are vehemently present, okay? It's also why we remember the lyrics to our favorite songs or the alphabet song. All this to say, when we fail, when we lose, those three things are very, very present in our environment. It's thick with that, whereas when we win, not so much. So we have to think about loss and struggle and all this stuff as huge opportunities to learn, because that's where the most of the learning does happen, both philosophically and neurologically.